In this video, I'm going to take you through this nice little still life painting. This is perfect if you're a beginner or if you've just done a couple of paintings and you're just wanting to move on to that next step. So first of all, I am painting this painting on a linen canvas board, which I quite like because it means you can get straight to the painting quicker without having to tone your canvas first. I'm starting by drawing out a simple sketch of my painting. Now, you don't need to be amazing at drawing to be able to do this. You're basically just wanting to create an outline of the painting. What I'm doing now is following what's called construction lines for the bottle part of it. Now, this is essentially drawing in a vertical line and horizontal lines, so you can measure out to make sure that the actual bottle is parallel, and you don't want it to be lopsided at all. Now the pears are a lot more simple. I'm basically sketching out the basic shapes of them and making sure they're allocated in the right space. As you're going along and sketching this out, you just want to make sure that both the shapes are correct roughly, you're happy with them, and also the composition looks correct as well. Don't be afraid to make adjustments when you're actually going through this. That's what sketching is all about, really. If you want to make any corrections, just use an eraser. I normally actually like to put in the correct lines first and then erase the ones I want to get rid of. As you can see here, I wasn't quite pleased with the placement of that pear on the left, so I just decided to move it a little bit. Don't worry too much about the sketching part of the painting, just really try your best. You don't need to be fantastic at drawing, you just need to be able to put in the basic shapes and roughly the correct position. Once you're pleased with the outline of your drawing and you're happy that everything is in the correct place, then you can move on to the painting. First of all, if you have any hairspray, then just give it a quick spray over the canvas and wait about an hour or so for it to dry. This just helps lock in the drawing and stop it from smudging as you add paint. What I'm doing now is just starting to block in the object of the painting. Starting with the glass bottle because that's the darkest part of the painting, and then I'll move on to the pears afterwards. You don't need to get everything perfect at this stage, you are making a few alterations along the way anyway. The better you can get it, it will help you as you go along, but just remember it doesn't need to be perfect. Then moving on to the pears, again I'm starting in the darker areas and then I'm just working into the lighter areas afterwards. If you've done any basic still lifes in the past, and you can see some in my channel, then it's just the same process, but you're doing this multiple times in a painting. Just remember, as we're going through this video, it's speeded up quite a bit, so I don't expect you to paint this quickly. I know I can't myself, but just for the purposes of YouTube, and I don't want to make it a 2-hour video, then it's speeded up quite a bit. I'd just like to quickly ask you if there's any points in this painting where you're struggling to understand what I'm doing, then please let me know in the comments below. I'll try my best to help. With the pears, I'm looking to basically fill in the colours and making sure I'm happy with both the colour and the value. If you're wanting to darken any sections of the painting, a nice trick is to basically add the complementary colour to your mix, which acts more of a shadow. Once you're reasonably pleased with how the pears look, next I move it on to the framing of the subject. So first of all, I'm putting in the shadows in the foreground. I always like to start with painting the darker areas of the object I'm painting first, and then moving on to the lighter ones. That way it basically helps you to see how light the surrounding area should be in contrast to your shadow. By working on the object in the painting first and then working onto the parts surrounding it, it just helps you to really frame it. I always like to start my still life paintings by focusing on the actual subjects and then working around that. That essentially gives you something to frame. It puts the focus more on the object in the painting, and everything around it with the foreground and background are there just to sort of enhance what's already there. It looks great to have a nice foreground and background to your painting, but you just want to remember you're using this to enhance your actual painting of the objects in there, which are your main focal points. If you start to add too much fine detail, then it just distracts the viewer. You want the main focus to be on the bottle and the pears. Of course, you need to be making sure that you're happy with all the shadows in the foreground as well, because this just makes it look a lot more realistic. But what we're not looking to do is start to put any fine details into the surface. This is just more about getting rough with the right colours and getting the values correct. Similar when you're doing a simple blocking in of the objects in there as well. What we're not going to be doing is going in and adding more detail to this afterwards. So I'm just putting in some lighter areas into the bottle because it is what I would call semi-transparent. So I'm just trying to show this by having some lighter and dark areas. This just helps it look a bit more three-dimensional rather than flat. Now I'm starting to work on the background, so I basically want a nice soft and gentle background. It's again to frame the painting and not to take away the view from the actual objects in there as well. More than anything, you want the background to be more basic. You can add a bit more detail in the foreground, but the background, it just definitely needs to be soft and basic completely. Otherwise it will just distract the viewer. So I'm putting in two colours now. Well, it's the same colour, but just on different degrees of values. I'm doing this so I can start lighter in the middle and then gradually blend it so it gets darker as it goes further out. So to do this, I'm using the mop brush where you can see now. So if you're not using the mop brush to do your blending before, you essentially want to keep it very dry. If you get any paint on it, which you will do, you're just rubbing that off with a paper towel. These brushes are really great just to do a nice, soft and gentle blend. I'm gradually adding more paint where I need to and just spreading it around on the canvas with my mop brush. I just keep working along in this way until I'm happy with the results. Don't worry if you don't get this part perfect, and that goes to the same with any other part of the painting. Just do the best that you can. The great thing about this subject is it doesn't need to be perfect. Just do it the best that you can and it should still look reasonably well. These are simple images in the painting. It's quite a simple composition and you can take it to what level you want in accordance with your abilities. I'd just like to quickly ask, if you're enjoying this video so far, then don't forget to please hit that like button. I'd really love it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. All your support really helps. So now I'm happy with the main areas of the painting, I'm going to be working on this stalk and leaves coming out the bottom. This is where it starts to get into a bit more fine detail. So first of all, working on the stalk. Now, if you need to, because this is quite small detail with fine line work, then you can use a stick similar to what I'm about to use now. This just helps you to rest your wrist on that stick and make it so it's a bit more stable so you don't have your hand shaking while you paint. Now moving on to adding the leaves. I'm just really doing this the same way as I've done the different objects in the painting. A nice trick is to start darker on the leaves and then you go lighter on top of that as well, which is a great method when it comes to any foliage. So at the moment I'm just looking to block in the basic colours and values so we can then later go over with more detail. Just take your time and keep repeating this process until all the leaves are done. There really is no rush at all in any part of this painting, but specifically with this part, you want to take your time and make sure it's correct. It's a lot easier to put things how you like them initially than it is to start scraping painting off or start painting back over things that you've made wrong. can always make corrections in the painting at any point at all. But with parts like this, it's just a bit easier just to not make that error in the first place. For each of the leaves, just make sure that you're adding the full values in there. So you're looking to add the lighter areas and the darker areas as well. Once you're happy with how the colours and values are in your leaves, then the next step is to start adding your highlights and small details. So for this, I'm using a small detail brush, and I'm not using just pure white, it's just a much lighter version of the colour that I've been using. So it's mostly white mixed in with that colour to give it a very light green. I'm just working through each individual leaf at a time. As you can see shortly, by doing this, it really makes the painting come alive. You'll often find, especially working with still lifes, that if your painting just isn't quite popping out and looking right, then it's one of two things. First of all, it could just be the values, like the shadows and different value of colours in your painting, which is stopping it from looking three-dimensional. The other thing is it could be that highlights aren't quite correct. You want to think you want it to pop, so having two different values on the leaves at least just makes that happen. This is what I really consider to be a fun stage of the painting, because all the work you're putting into it so far is really starting now to come alive as you're adding in these small details. Sometimes beginner artists can think that they're not doing too well, but all they really need to do is to be able to take that next step in putting in those small details. And they'll be really surprised by how much better their paintings do actually look. This part of the painting process is more about looking at the small details, and instead of just blocking things in with large amounts of colour with a larger brush, you're using a much smaller fine detail brush and really just taking your time to add those details in correctly. Now, if you want to make any alterations like I'm doing here, this is the right time to do it. As the painting starts to come more alive, you can take a step back and you just get to really look at your painting, view it, and thinking, are there any areas where you need to improve? So for this part, I wasn't really too happy with my glass bottle. I thought it's just not really looking translucent enough, so I decided to lighten it somewhat. So I'm just adding in the lighter green and just gently blending it softly into the painting. I did end up overdoing it slightly with the light green, so now I'm just pulling it back a little bit by adding some more of the darker shade. And these are the last couple of touches on the painting that I'll make. If you want to continue to work on your painting, then just continue to do so now until you're happy with the results. You might need to add in some more small details or check that your shadows and values are looking correct. Make any alterations now, and then when you're happy with those, then the painting is basically finished. Now you've watched this video, then I highly recommend you watch this next one coming up, which is all about how focusing on small paintings can really help speed up the learning process.